If you've ever stayed in a hotel or an Airbnb, then privacy is normally one of the concerns that you have. In today's world, sadly, people are out there with malicious intent and want to breach your privacy when you're at your most vulnerable. Cameras put in secret locations, spying on you whilst you're in the shower, changing clothes, or maybe even spending some alone time with a partner. But as technology grows and people become more adept, we've seen a huge fight back against these sick individuals who prey on people when they're unguarded. But what about those people who brazenly take this one step further and physically try to invade your privacy with evil intentions? It's not as common as spy cameras, but it still does happen, and today's story shows how far people are willing to go to give in to their sexual depravity. On the evening of the 6th of October 2019, a then 20-year-old Hugo Delgado approached a lone woman at a hotel in Shoreditch, East London, and claimed the room she was entering was actually his. The woman, aged in her 50s, would go on to produce a key card and told him to discuss the matter with reception, which he did. At roughly 10:51 p.m, Hugo told reception staff that he was the woman's husband and that he'd left his key in the room. The receptionist had no idea that Hugo wasn't actually with the woman, so with good intentions they gave him a key card for the room. Hugo then left the hotel, and at roughly 3 a.m. he entered the room where he went on to sexually assault the woman who had been sleeping. Roughly 2 hours later, she was awoken by Hugo after he sexually assaulted her. He was completely naked. To this, she screamed and shouted for him to leave. He then put his clothes on and left. Police were called to the hotel and viewed CCTV footage which depicted him leaving at roughly 5:25 a.m. Once they had their man, an investigation by the Metropolitan Police was launched, but this at first proved unsuccessful as the hotel night stalker was about to strike once again. At around 4:45 a.m, near enough 5 days later, on the 12th of October 2019, a woman in her 20s who had been on a night out with friends in Shoreditch was approached by none other than Hugo Delgado. Reports don't make it clear if the two actually communicated with each other, but as she walked off in the direction of Old Street, he followed behind. The next memory the woman had was waking up in a hotel room where Hugo had performed a sexual act. She by this point had also been sexually assaulted. But Hugo didn't flee from the scene. He stayed in bed after sexually assaulting the woman. The woman played it smart. She knew if she made any irrational next moves, it could have either made Hugo flee or something even worse happening. Later that very same morning, she quietly made contact with police, and a short while later, Hugo was arrested in the hotel room. Inquiries into the circumstances surrounding the second incident revealed that earlier the same night, Hugo tried to obtain key cards for 2 rooms at the hotel where the assault took place. He gave the wrong name for one of the rooms and the other wasn't occupied. He didn't manage to get keys for either of the rooms. According to data received from the room the girl was sexually assaulted in, it showed that when he did gain access to it, it was because the door was opened. More than likely meaning he followed her all the way to her room, and as she was entering, more than likely drunk, he swiftly made his way into the room. But for some reason, after Hugo was arrested, he was bailed until July of 2020, a whole 9 months later. When he was summoned to court in July, he was charged with sexual assault, exposure, and trespass with intent to commit a sexual offence. After these charges were brought against him, he was finally remanded into custody. Then, in February of 2021, he was further charged with assault by penetration, attempted sexual assault, and exposure. After a trial in August of 2021, he was found guilty on all charges that were brought against him. He was handed a 10-year jail sentence, will spend a further 4 years on licence, and will be on the sex offenders register for life. So unfortunately for these 2 victims, the worst possible outcome of someone trying to invade your privacy happened. But it really does pose some questions about security in hotels. For example, why did the receptionist not question whether Hugo had been telling the truth about him being the woman's husband? Why wasn't any ID asked to be seen? Or why didn't the receptionist go to the woman's room to check if things were adding up? In the second hotel, it did seem as if they did do some kind of security checks, but sadly for the second victim, she was stalked by Hugo until ultimately he got into her room. But why didn't the police act faster? If they did, then we wouldn't have had a second incident happen. Imagine if the second woman didn't bravely wait and panicked. More victims could have most definitely been added to this list. So coming away from this story, I really do hope that these two victims can get the support that they need. I know the second victim, the 20-year-old, actually gave a victim impact statement in court. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but one thing I do want to take away from that is she was basically saying that this will stay with her for the rest of her life and she has to continue to go to therapy. Even though this happened in 2019, still in 2021, she's still going to therapy to help her. So again, I really do hope moving forward they still get the support that is needed. For now though, give the video a like for more crime related content like this, and make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't. It's been me, Huncho, and I'll see you in the next one.